Hello and welcome to the LLMix podcast. I'm your host, Jay Chauhan, and I lead the media entertainment vertical for Tech Mahindra globally. Today marks the first episode where we talk about advertising. And in case you're wondering why it's taken us so many episodes to finally come around to probably the largest segment in the media entertainment industry at about $1 trillion, well, it's because we've been waiting for the right guest to speak with. And who better than Priti Mhatre, who joins us all the way from London from WPP Open. Priti, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be part of this and talking about something I'm deeply passionate about.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. And Preeti, to introduce you to our guests, you are the Chief Product and AI Officer for production at WPP Open.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes.
Excellent.
I lead our product from a production perspective and building WPP Open to what it's been, so a marketing operating system. So yeah, we'll go deep into it, I believe, during our conversation.
Absolutely. So, and we'll kick off with what we always do, which is myth busting stuff. So, I'm sure a
Okay.
lot of clients that you speak with come back to you with perhaps a strange thing that's to the tune of why should this creative cost me so much? Why can't you just do it for maybe a tenth or slash 90% off the bill? Because you're going to use AI anyway for either your storyboarding or creative or what have you. So, how would you respond to those kind of myths with amongst your clients?
I think, well, you're getting to the point straight away, which I love. I think that's a tricky question, and you know that as well. And you're right. Clients come up with this question all the time, and I would say it's probably a tricky one because it's not just a myth. There is some reality in it as well, right? Yes, AI can produce all the content you need, probably for one tenth of the price. We are rapidly approaching an era where, let's say, AI can produce great images, videos, it can write your copy pretty convincingly, and you can do that at scale, right? But I think the trap isn't where AI can produce content or AI can produce good looking content. It's whether AI can produce the exact pixel perfect content with, let's say, the right product, the right label for the right market, taking into consideration the legal regulations of each different market. There's complexity in marketing. And for AI and the context of the AI language model to understand all of that context and apply it is a complex challenge. So yes, AI can probably produce a lot of content by not even one tenth, probably for free, but it won't be the right content or it won't be exceptional content, right? If you start thinking about, let's say, AI and the content generated by AI, almost everyone can do it. And in a world where everyone can create the same content, what differentiates you? So differentiating content, probably not for one tenth of the price, but if you want just okay average content, you could possibly create it. And I think when you speak about one tenth of the price, I think I have a challenge with that question specifically because yes, AI can create content probably for less than one tenth of the price, but I think the the basic error that we're doing and trying to do that and trying to calculate the cost of that is when you're taking the cost of the commercial as the cost of production and you're completely discounting the cost of, let's say, the creative director who's internalized, let's say, 20 years of cultural shifts, or the strategist that works with the client in and out for decades and understands unarticulated needs that the client has, or the, let's say, the channel expert that understands, let's say, what best works in that cultural context, what's working now, and also what's right. Like we speak about guardrails quite a lot. AI is great at ideation, storyboarding, but to create production grade content that sees the light of the day, that's a really complex problem. There is a lot of governance that needs to go, and someone needs to be accountable for the content that is published. So all of that agency, all of that governance is what is kind of encapsulates the true cost of production as well. So I think you need to see the whole picture as well. So yes, I think it's a myth and not a myth as well. It's probably half the question or probably a partial way to see the challenge.
Understood. And what do you respond to when people say, well, headcount, why do you need headcount? You've just got AI agents now that can do everything. They can orchestrate, movement of media. They can orchestrate, repurposing content from, one format to the other. Why would you need a lot of people anyway? So how would you kind of respond to that?
I think that is also something that we as WPP are inherently evaluating. We do see a displacement. And when I say displacement, I'm being intentional. It's not reducing the number of people, it's evolving what people do. I think people will increasingly move towards what we call M-shaped individuals quite a lot, which is where they start becoming experts in, let's say, creative and commerce. So you start to kind of move from what used to be a T-shaped individual, which is, let's say, depth in one area and broad knowledge of multiple areas. We're starting to move towards M-shape, where you'll need to have depth in a couple of areas as well. So I think that's where we start to see a lot of that. And yes, I think for doing the baseline marketing campaign, let's say you'll need fewer individuals, but you'll need a lot more people who are directing. So let's say you would move from people doing the jobs, or let's say if I love this analogy of, let's say, orchestra. So instead of having 20 people doing different instruments in an orchestra, you can have AI do lots of musical instruments, but you still need conductors to write the symphony, to orchestrate and to define what's right and to ensure that the human emotion is depicted through. So yes, you probably may need fewer people to do the jobs, to do the doing, but what you'll inherently do in that journey is free up people to do higher order thinking. So it will help brands get more creative. It will help brands raise above, let's say, what's AI slop and average content that's flooded the market. So I think it's a great thing that creatives won't do any of the grunge work. So I don't need a creative to sit in Photoshop and do hours of editing. That could be simplified. The creative can actually think and create distinctive content. So I think I'm hoping this will drive the quality of the content back further.
Right. Understood. And now switching gears, if let's talk about WPP Open now. Now, what is WPP Open, and what are the trends in the market that kind of led to the rise of WPP Open?
Sure. So I would say we are fortunate. I mean, I'm fortunate that we at WP saw, let's say, the impact of AI far earlier than, let's say, most companies. And this is also because we started working on Open way before ChatGPT launch, where AI was, let's say, uh, a general revolution that kind of impacted the whole of the industry. So we started working on it earlier than that. We started thinking, how can we bring marketing together? What does, let's say, tech front-end marketing look like? And we acquired Satalia, which is an AI outpost out of UCL, which had a lot of AI PhDs. Daniel Hume, who is our chief AI officer, is, let's say, runs Satalia. But that kind of infused a lot of, let's say, research and AI thinking within the organization. And I think the other great thing we did is we sent a cohort of WPP leadership to an Oxford AI graduation kind of course for AI for executives, which kind of helped us have a great foundational start on this journey before even ChatGPT hit and everyone else was looking at it. So WPP Open was essentially a synthesis of, let's say, the key need of completely revolutionizing marketing and looking at marketing as an operating system that brings the best of tools, the best of AI, and the best of craft together. So how does it kind of work in a inherent integrated solution? So it's a combination, it's an operating system, it's a combination of an AI first take on marketing. And I think I can speak more, let's say, towards why did we build the production side of things. I think we were constantly in a world where, let's say, the content supply chain is inherently fragmented. If you think about how a brand creates content, the people or the agencies that do the production shoots, so the big TV ad commercials, is different from the people who do, let's say, the website content is different from people who do commerce content or media activation. And then this fragments further within markets, within brands. So think of that. The same tagline is being converted into multiple channels by multiple different people, which means the learning is broken, the reuse is broken. Everyone is creating new content, and there is no reuse through the journey, which is fine for a bit. We saw a trend in the market a decade ago where clients were inherently decoupling marketing. So they were kind of creating production experts and production agencies, creative agencies, media agencies, because decoupling was easier and easier to manage. In an AI world, that completely reverses itself because in an AI world, you need an end to end because you need the learning. You need to understand what's working to be able to do better content. You can't decouple it. So I think that was one of the key reasons why we started working on Open and hence the production solution within Open. But we also saw while clients were asking us to use AI was used so far in, let's say, pilots and creative ideation. It can create great content, but none of that content will actually seeing the light of the day because production grade content is still a difficult challenge even today, right? Because if you think about it, AI is trained on, let's say, the whole of the internet. Often brands and like companies like WPP, we can't use some of the frontier models that do not follow, let's say, enterprise security, don't give you indemnity. We need to ensure we are working in a safe environment where you can guarantee full indemnity, work with clients, ensure that the data is safe and private as well. So we have, let's say, a disconnected but highly private setup where we can work with the clients and work with tech vendors like Google, Microsoft, and get best of their models integrated in a secure environment. So I think that was one of the drivers. But I think the other thing was also specifically in production is to ensure how do you get to, let's say, yes, you can create amazing visuals, but getting the product accurate with the right label was always a challenge. So we had to combine, let's say, techniques like virtual production into AI to kind of combine and get the best of both worlds.
Right. And so if as TechM, if we were to come to approach WPP and say we need to run a campaign across, let's say, across Europe, and we'd like you to use WPP Open for it. So, what parts of what can it not do, and what would it do for us? For example, if we were to start for a brand refresh campaign, for example.
I think I would say it should be able to do everything for you. I mean, that's the whole challenge. I think WPP Open is almost an encapsulation of decades of knowledge that we've now encapsulated and encodified into some of these agents that we've built. So, for example, our creative agents has kind of scoured through years and years of can entries and understands what works, what resonates. We have thinking models that go deep into psychological behavior, understanding neuroscience behind it. We have channel experts that look at what's working in channels. All of these working together, we should be able to create the best. And always couple that with the best creative talent that you get in WPP. I think we should surely be able to do everything through it.
It would be the creative, and then after that, the media planning, the media buying, and that entire end-to-end chain is what you're saying it would do. And
Absolutely.
so if we would approach you, let's say, in an era where WPP Open did not exist, how long do you think it would take us? Very rough rule of thumb versus now, now that you have WPP Open in place, like in terms of timescales, if it would take us maybe 3 months back then, how long would it take us now? What's the impact that you think if it's created?
I think, well, that's a tricky question because I think it depends upon, let's say, the maturity of your side of marketing or client side of marketing as well. The complexity of the challenge. So, is it, let's say, a lower funnel activation, which you're saying a brand refresh in this case, or it's, let's say, a defining moment, which is launch of a new product or a Super Bowl moment. So, I think the amount of equity you relate to each of those would be different. But I think in terms of purely amplifying it, yes, you could get almost, let's say, 86% faster, right? If everything else is in place. So you have your great brand idea, you've gone through all you're doing is, let's say, just creating content at scale, and you have your brand guardrails, etc., in order, codified, equipped. That's great. But then if you then come to me and say, oh, I need 10 different approval stages and it needs to go through 5-layer approvals, that is inherently going to
Sure.
slow us down, right?
Yeah.
So I think it is, I love this because it is a great trade-off between, let's say, getting faster, but also losing creative control. So clients that have and want and demand greater creative control over every pixel that is becomes part of that advert will still go through that inherent fine-tuned curated process. And brands that are generally okay with, let's say, I don't mind for AI to take the agency and curate and create content and then decide whether it's working or not, depending upon based on the performance metrics, that's where you can achieve some scale. And I wouldn't say one approach is better than the others. I think there are moments where I think you do need a curated experience where you speak probably talking about a highly emotionally resonant human moment, or let's say a big brand moment versus, let's say, lower funnel performance marketing like advertising. Like performance marketing and that advertising could be fully automated through this process.
Hmm. That's true. So, if I can come switch gears to challenges, what, as far as WPP Open, the product is concerned, what is still something that is still extremely challenging to pull off? Or let me rephrase, what's the holy grail as far as, the WPP product is concerned? What would be?
I think challenging still. I mean, the creative control versus automation challenge is still a challenge. I wouldn't say it's a challenge of the product in itself or a platform, but it's the challenge in, let's say, where marketing is today, right? It is still clients still want full creative control. They want to review and approve every single version and every single step, while they want to generate it at 1/10 of the price and 1/10 of the speed as well. And that's, let's say, a false dichotomy there. But that's the challenge. But I think truly from a platform perspective, the challenge is one to interpret briefs in the best possible way, because there's a lot of unsaid, unarticulated, let's say, understanding that you and me probably would have. If you're briefing me, you would expect me to understand a lot of context that is not articulated in a brief. And I think trying to capture that in a brief, because AI doesn't understand that intangible concept, that is tricky. I think what's tricky still is brands still don't have, let's say, a full grasp of all of their content that can form the training corpus for AI to create more brand attuned copy. Fine tuning is still a big challenge. So getting to create, let's say, brand aesthetic, which is differentiated from someone else's. So in a world where everyone is using the same AI models, same frontier models, how would you differentiate between two competing brands? The content will increasingly start looking the same. And this is where the human kind of differentiation comes in the picture. And I think my favorite one is, while AI can do, let's say, pattern matching and prediction, it's great at doing the known knowns. So I know this and I know the answer to this. I can repeat and do that same thing. It is also great at predicting the unknown knowns. So something that has happened before, but it can tell you that this may appear again. But it's terrible at doing unknown unknowns, right? Something that hasn't happened before, hasn't been in the training corpus. It's terrible at doing that. So a good example being, I don't know if you remember, in 2020, we ran a campaign for Burger King, which is the moldy Whopper. So we showed a big, like the burger with mold on it, right? The point being, the beauty of real food is that it gets ugly. Now, I don't think AI could come up with that. That is, let's say, out of the box thinking. And I think AI actually enables us to do that because it takes care of the day to day. It then frees up creatives to think about these groundbreaking ideas.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, that's a great example to bring in the moldy burger. Speaking of guardrails, as at Tech Mahindra, we're extremely careful about the use of AI responsibly, and we have our own frameworks called Verify AI for it. Can you give us some examples of where you've seen things go wrong without appropriate use of guardrails, and what we could maybe done differently or are doing differently now?
Yeah, I think we've done, and I can say we've done. I think we've spent the last year doing a lot of AI experiments and pilots with clients, where we just wanted to test, let's say, the the length AI could go in, where could it take you. And this is also where we decided to separate out our creative proposition with our production proposition. Creative is where you want divergent thinking, you want it to test the limits, you want it to go crazy. And production is where we probably want more deterministic output. So we want to kind of hone it down, make sure it follows all your brand guidelines, make sure that it's not using any copyrighted material that you don't own the rights for and it doesn't land you in trouble. Also, it's responsible and ethically correct. So last year we had a lot of strange requests. We still get requests from clients where, let's say, a client is asking, I've done this TV spot with, let's say, a certain ethnicity of talent, and can you use AI and change the ethnicity of this? Now, technically, that's very possible with AI, and you can, like with the current models, Gemini, VO, you can really get absolutely stunning outputs for it. But the question then remains, just because AI can do it, should you do it? Is it ethical to do it? So there are, I think brands have also evolved in the last year or so where they now have AI guidelines and principles where some of the brands we work with have a strict rule where we don't use AI generated humans, for example. You can use AI for backgrounds, you can use AI for uh, artificial environments, but not for humans. So I think that's helped. So yes, there are many areas where we've kind of shown a client where it could go wrong. AI also probably doesn't quite understand undefined guardrails. So for example, sometimes when we were prompting, you could have seen, let's say, a Google and a Microsoft person working together or logos being used. So these, let's say, undefined or unscripted, let's say, challenges or intangible context that the AI can't. And then I think there's always this uncanny valley. Like we spend a lot of time, and especially in production, where let's say the creative has come up with a great creative vision, it's AI generated, and we spend hours trying to fix the AI generated issue because sometimes it had six fingers, sometimes the wheels aren't turning right, or they're they're very granular challenges that we need to fix. So there's the uncanny valley is still a big challenge that we have to
It's extremely
fix
frustrating.
it.
You're right.
It is. And like some people won't notice it, but a few people will notice everything. And I think the challenge with that is once people notice that, you're losing your brand equity, and that's invaluable, right? And I think you cannot risk that. And these are the biggest. So I think we specifically in production, we go huge on guardrails, brand compliance, and also because how do we bake this into our process so that everything we're creating is brand safe, it's ethically transparent, it's legally compliant. You can trace the, let's say, audit trail of where the image came from. Was it adapted from existing image? Did you have the rights? What AI models were used? Were those AI models approved for the client as well? Because the clients have different risk appetites of which AI models they can use. So we have to make sure that all of that is taken care of. So I would say guardrails is high on my agenda as well as the production WPP, but more importantly for clients as well, specifically if something has to go out in the market and yeah, hits a day. And I think going back to your first Mythbuster question of can AI and agents can generate, so we're working on agents that can generate tens and thousands of assets, right? And they can run autonomously and do, let's say, almost the whole marketing campaign autonomously. But think of they decide on a concept and start creating all of the content for a concept, and that concept is ethically incorrect or let's say results into a PR nightmare, right? That one single thing could lead into, let's say, complete downfall of a brand. So that's probably the accountability and the guardrail kind of framework that we need to embody. And that's where also the human in the loop is very important for us.
Love it. Well, if you can switch to some crystal ball gazing, so in the whole advertising ecosystem right now, everybody's now becoming an ad tech. Even the banks are, even retailers are becoming ad techs. But the ecosystem is still dominated by two or three really large tech players. So with your sort of wizarding hat on, where do you see the ecosystem evolving in another two to 3 years?
Yes, I think that's an interesting. It's something that we as, let's say, product leaders at WPP are constantly thinking about. How do we build a platform in a world that one technologically changes every 2 weeks? A new model launches, the game changes, or a
Yeah.
new paper launches and everything changes. So we're constantly at that bleeding edge, making sure we have the pulse of it. But I think the three things I think would probably start to shape advertising and marketing and hence AI in that space in the next 2 to 3 years is, I think most firstly, I think there's an inherent need, and we can see that trend coming to life slowly and gradually, is to move from, let's say, an hours based model, which was pay agencies for an hourly basis, so to a outcome based model. So incredibly, so in a world where you can create infinite content, in a world where, let's say, the cost of creating that content is rapidly approaching zero, I think the value shifts from the hours you spend creating content to creating just the right content. So it moves from the value of production to the value of strategy and the value of deciding what not to build as well, right? So moving to outcome based models where it shouldn't matter whether you need 10,000 assets or 100 assets to make the impact you need for a brand, as long as you can make the impact. So I think it will inherently shift from, let's say, how many people you have, how many agents you have, what tech do you have to drive this growth for me or make sure this impact has happened, I get the acquisition I need, and whatever it takes to do that. So this makes, I think, marketing come back together. So I think referring back to the recoupling trend that we see coming. So inherently, we would see creative media, strategy all working together to achieve that outcome, and brands asking companies like us to achieve an outcome as opposed to you do this part of the process, you do that part of the process. And that's a huge change. Moving to an outcome based model signifies a huge change in the industry overall. So that's one. The other I would say is there is, I mean, autonomous agents is a huge thing, and agents that can create content, that can strategize, go do creative concepting, do synthetic testing. They're all actually getting really, really good over time as well. So I think there will be a world where you have a good combination and a good balance of probabilistic agents, the agents that can kind of go wild, think that you couldn't think of concepts that you couldn't possibly think of because of time and labor challenges, and that can kind of almost scour the world and come back with really potent ideas. But then a combination of deterministic outputs where you have finer granular control over what's exactly happened so that you can trace back and change granular things. So I think we will inherently within marketing live in a world where autonomous agents can do amazing things. And then the places where you need deterministic, semi automated workflows to kind of run that through so that you have granular control. So that's another area we see a lot happening. But I think the third area I would say, which I hope a lot more work will happen, is the new, let's say, technological advancements that happen. So we've kind of now reached probably the limit of what LLMs can do, right? So I think I'm quite excited about context engineering, so agentic context engineering, and models like tiny recursive models that are based on HLMs. So tiny recursive models, for example, are amazing for, let's say, self-refining recursion. So they kind of, instead of thinking wide and then going for through one single pass of reasoning, tiny recursive models kind of go and adapt their own thinking and they refine their own thinking. And I think these are great for doing deterministic tasks, specifically in production, whereas creative ideation, you want LLMs to go broad. So I think it would be good to see how those evolve as well. I think another trend is obviously democratization of creation overall, right? Content creation is being democratized. You no longer need, let's say, deep production experts and great deep craft experts to do simpler things. So we're having a digital photography moment in marketing as well, where like the likes of multimodal models like Gemini and Nano Banana allow you to just type and edit an image without having knowledge of, let's say, deep Premiere Pro or Photoshop, and it's getting pretty good. The outcomes are pretty promising. So I'm quite excited about how that shapes marketing supply chains.
Interesting. So, on a more personal note, Priti, can you take us through some of like your personal journey in tech and I come from the perspective of like Tech Mahindra, we're a tech company, obviously, but we're largely full of tech bros, if you know what I mean. So, what's it been? What's it been? Take us through your journey in a tech world dominated mostly by men.
Yeah, I mean, I I come from, well, I've grown up in Mumbai. I'm an engineer at heart, so I did start my career in tech. So I spent 10 years in Tata Consultancy Services. So very similar to you in the let's say media and entertainment vertical. So I think, which is why I think this podcast is of very, very interest and close to my heart as well. So so yes, coming from a tech world, I never actually thought in India engineering and being an engineering is such a common place. I never thought it was a men's play. So I think you have plenty engineers in India. So I think that was probably an edge. I never thought I was doing anything different. But then when I shifted into marketing, I think that's where I started to see there are fewer technology, women in technology overall in marketing space or in different industries, to be fair. So I think I was like happily living in a bubble where it's like life is equal. So I think that never deterred me. But I think now that I've seen that women are underrepresented in other areas and other industries, I think we have a drive to kind of inspire women to join technology. And I think now I would say is such a great moment in time because with AI, I think everything is being rewritten. The rules of the game are being written. The level ground is back again. Everyone is starting from ground zero. Let's say your age old, even software engineering discipline is changing so much. Consultancies, the frameworks that we've used for decades need rework. So I think to all the women out there, if you're listening, now is your time to go because there's no other time where you're going to start from ground zero, right? AI is rewriting the rules of what the industry will be in the following decades, and now is the time to start. And we may not get this opportunity later in life. So this is a unique time in our world where we can really start from ground zero. And if anyone tells you they're an expert in AI, they're probably not accurate because no one can be an expert because everything is changing.
And how fast? My God, it's shocking.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and yeah, like you said, one paper releases and that changes everything.
Yeah, and now we are racking our brains thinking, oh God, how does this completely change our technology stack? We are also highly excited about using, let's say, vibe coding and Cursor and Windsurf and all of those tools to kind of see if we can accelerate coding as well. I mean, that has shown some promise. I'm excited about it, but there's a lot to do in that space.
Yeah, lots of guardrails needed there too. I can't tell you how many times I've used Lovable Cursor and it says it's going to refactor the code, but no, it hasn't refactored it at all. So another story. But
Yes, it has its own problem, right? So it has
yeah,
its own challenges. Yes.
exactly. We're completely out of time, but I really want to, since we talked about tech stacks, your last question for me is, what are some two or three really cool things that you've seen out there, um, AI related, hopefully in the advertising world, but it doesn't have to be. But what's like really cool that you say, wow, this is amazing?
Well, I think I really loved, let's say, how Nano Banana and multimodal models completely changed the way we use AI, right? I think AI was such a hard job because you would chat to a chat GPT, get something done, then copy paste it. It was a huge copy pasting exercise and copy and paste it and put it in an image model to get an image, then download it and put it in a Photoshop to make changes. I think the multimodal side of it is so human like, which means I don't have to think whether what mode I need to use. I can just type and it will decide what to do. I think that is truly game changing, I believe. And I think it's getting closer to how humans think. And I think that helps quite a lot. And it takes away that burden of me having to think which model I need to use. So I think definitely super exciting. I think I'm overall exciting about, let's say, how do we kind of move away from standard models, models that everyone used, to probably more sophisticated models that are trained, so custom training, fine tuning, which is also where I think that the tiny recursive models kind of show a lot of promise. Again, yet to be proven, but that's super exciting, and how it kind of applies to advertising is great. I'm also seeing lots of cool, let's say, developments in advertising space, especially creative space, like the way Adobe is moving, the way, let's say, node-based workflows like N8N, Comfy UI, and seeing creatives, like it's all over my LinkedIn, how creatives are applying similar, let's say, node-based workflows, but how they're stitching together complex editing workflows or complex content creation workflows into these seamless scaled implementations, and how do we kind of bring them back and drive that at scale, adding the guardrails which do not exist today, is something that we are actively trying to resolve, and I think that's super exciting for me right now.
So, listen, Preeti, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you, and I know we're completely out of time, and I've taken up most of your day. So, thank you so much for all your insights, and I hope to see you soon.
Yes, lovely to meet you, and really enjoyed our conversation. Hope you got something out of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.